Hello guys, it's MashTec here. Today I want to show you how to make the Lego NES set, including the TV, work like the real thing. Ever since Lego released a set to build a NES out of building blocks, I was fascinated by the idea to have my own one and turn it into a real working machine. I mean, we could throw everything inside the TV and just stand the NES right next to it, but that's not gonna be the standard for this project today. My aim was to get it done as realistic and authentic as possible, with separated function of the NES and the TV, sound from within the TV, connectors for the required cables, support of up to 4 controllers, and for sure a working power LED. So let me show you what parts fit the best for me and what hacks need to be done to make the process as easy as possible and get the most realistic and authentic result. In the end, we'll have a playable Lego NES set for around $380 or euros. If you're interested in this project or may plan to build your own one, then you're at the right place. So let's start right into the video. Enjoy! Let's start with an overview of all required parts and costs and create ourselves a shopping list. Remember, I have timestamps for each section of this video, so if you're not interested in this part, you can just jump over to the next section. First of all, we need the Lego assembly kit, including the NES, the TV, controller and the Mario Bros cartridge. The whole set comes for around $230 or euro. Next, we need a Raspberry Pi 4B for around $40 or euro. The Pi 4 is strong and tiny, fits perfect into the Lego NES and can be replaced in future in case you like to upgrade the power of your playable Lego NES. To fit the Pi into the NES, I recommend getting a Raspberry Pi Lego case for around $5 or euros. Since my Raspberry didn't come with a power adapter, I got myself one with a power switch applied to the cable for $10 or euros. As display, I recommend getting this 8-inch IPS panel with the correct aspect ratio of 4:3 on AliExpress for only $40 or euros. It is 100% compatible with the Raspberry Pi 4 and fits perfect into the Lego TV. I found this red USB LED on eBay that can easily be installed to our Lego NES as power indicator. If you decide to get it, ensure you pick the right color and choose the style always on. It costs around $9 or euros. I also found some low profile speakers on eBay that really sound great and fulfill the size requirement for only $15 or euros. To extend the audio jack connector, I bought an adapter cable on Amazon that has a small diameter so we can perfectly glue it into a brick on the backside of the NES. As controllers, I can recommend some really good quality USB replicas of the original NES controllers from Amazon. The package includes 2 controllers for only $11 or euros. Beside that stuff, we also need a micro HDMI to full-size HDMI adapter for $3 or euros from Amazon. And 2 USB hubs to share the power within the NES and the TV. We also need a USB-C to USB-A adapter to connect the power adapter to the USB hub inside the NES. And that's it. In total, we have to buy stuff for $388 or euros, so we're slightly under $400 for the whole package. First of all, assemble the Lego NES kit together. I'll keep this part short since the process is pretty much straightforward and would explode this video if I'd go into this in detail. So I summarized the steps with a few pics I took while I built mine. Now, before we start, let's make a plan on how we install all the parts together. So the first thing we do is to install the Raspberry Pi into the Lego case. Then we assemble this package into the Lego NES together with the USB hub. After that, we wire the Raspberry Pi power connector to the USB hub and connect the USB power LED. Now we can plug in the audio adapter cable to the Pi and install its socket to the NES case. For my setup, I plugged in the micro HDMI to full-size HDMI adapter to the Raspberry Pi and connected a mini HDMI to full-size HDMI cable. This could be simplified by just getting a micro HDMI to mini HDMI cable, but since I already had a mini to full-size cable, I just needed the adapter. On the TV side, we'll install the screen and speakers inside of it. We also need to install the USB hub and connect the power cable of the screen and speakers to it. And that's almost everything we need to do. Now let's go through it together and start with preparing our Raspberry Pi. First, we want to install RetroPie, a collection of emulators and emulation front-end to our Raspberry Pi. The easiest way to install it is to navigate to the Raspberry Pi homepage and download their official tool called Raspberry Pi Imager. I have a direct link to it in the video description. Scroll down to the download section and find links for Windows as well as for macOS and Linux if this is your PC's operating system. If you're running on Windows like I do, just click on the Download for Windows button and download the Pi Imager installer. After the download is complete, we can install and directly run it. In the menu, we start by choosing our device. In our case, it will be Raspberry Pi 4. Next, click on Choose Operating System and scroll down to Emulation and Game OS. Here, we can select in between Recalbox and RetroPie. For this tutorial, we select RetroPie and choose the version for a Raspberry Pi 4. As last configuration step, we click on Choose Storage and select the drive to our microSD card. Based on what you plan to play with your Lego NES, I recommend you to use a microSD card with at least 32 GB of storage. Back in the main menu, we can click on Next and confirm the security warning dialog with Yes to start the actual flash process. Raspberry Pi Imager will now install RetroPie to the microSD card, verify the written data and safely eject the SD card from your system. First step done. Now it's time to install a Raspberry Pi into its Lego case. Take the board, align it to the two big pins on the top and press it down gently until it flips into the case. Check all the connectors around the case and ensure that they all rest in their desired positions. We can put the cover on the top and press it down gently until all sides rest in with a clear click. Now that we've installed the Pi to the case, we can insert the microSD card to it. Insert the card with the golden pins up. At this point, we can connect an external monitor, plug in a USB keyboard and start the Pi for the first time so it can process the initial configuration steps. Our Raspberry Pi will expand the partition on the microSD card so we can use the full capacity of it. After a few minutes, it starts into RetroPie where we can configure our input device. Therefore, I plug in one of my USB NES controllers and go through the button mapping wizard on the screen. Restart the Pi and enter the configuration menu so we can do a few more configuration steps here. Choose Raspberry config from the list so we can start with the first step and set up the Wi-Fi on our Raspberry Pi. The first and very necessary step is to set the Wi-Fi country. We find it at the localization options in the subsection Wireless LAN country. Here, you need to choose your country from the list and confirm by selecting OK. You'll see a confirmation message that tells you that the wireless LAN country was set to your selection. We can leave the configuration tool to get back into the RetroPie menu. Here, we scroll down to Wi-Fi and open it with a press on the A button on our controller. Select Connect to Wi-Fi network to get a list of available networks around you. Choose your network and enter your network password to connect. After the connection is established, we'll see our Pi's IP address up here on the screen. Note it down because we're gonna need it later in another step. Leave the Wi-Fi menu and jump back into the Raspi config to enable wireless access to the data on our device. Enter the Interface Options entry and select SSH from the list to enable remote SSH connections. This is required to make use of tools like WinSCP. Confirm the next dialog with yes, and we're done. Now that we have remote access to our Raspberry Pi, we can use a tool called WinSCP to copy files over from our PC. To give the Pi more of a Nintendo feeling, we can add a fitting splash video on boot up. Let me show you how to do that. First, we need to start WinSCP and make a connection to the Raspberry Pi. At the entry screen, we can add a new connection with a double click on New Site. Leave the file protocol field at SFTP and enter the IP address of our Pi that we recently noted down as hostname. The login username is Pi and the associated password is Raspberry, all in small letters. Click on Save and give the connection a speaking name. In my case here, I called it Raspberry Pi at followed by my Pi's IP address. If you're on a safe computer, I recommend to check the Save Password box so you don't have to enter the password each time you make a connection to the device. Confirm with click on OK and hit the login button to establish the connection. Confirm the next dialog box and you should see the file system of your Raspberry Pi. From here, open the RetroPie folder. It contains two interesting subfolders, one for ROMs if you like to copy over your own games, and a folder called Splash Screens. We want to enter this folder and add a short startup video for our Pi. I leave a link for you to the video I used in the video description. So to add the video, just copy it over into this folder. Now we need to switch over to the RetroPie menu again and select it as startup video. Back on the RetroPie menu, open up the Splash Screens entry. Ensure that the use of splash screens is active by looking for the word enabled in the brackets here. In case it is disabled, you can toggle in between enabled and disabled on this entry. Enter the first option to choose a splash screen. Here we can either choose from pre-installed splash screens or select one of our own added splash screens. So select the second entry and choose our previously added Nintendo.mp4 startup video. Confirm with click on OK. You should see a confirmation dialog to tell us that our recently added video was successfully set as splash screen. Confirm this dialog with OK and exit the splash screen menu. Now we can enter the emulation station main menu with a press on the start button. Select quit and restart the system to see if our changes took effect. The system of our Raspberry Pi is going down for reboot and starts up with the new configuration. And here it is. The Raspberry Pi now shows our own startup video before it starts into emulation station. To make the startup perfectly clean, we want to get rid of the annoying boot messages and make the console look more authentic. Let's do this step next. Press Alt and F4 to enter a command line on your Raspberry Pi. Here we need to type sudo nano/boot/cmdline.txt and press enter. This will open up the command line configuration file with super user rights in a text editor called Nano. All we need to do here is to change the entry called console from TTY1 to TTY3. This will redirect the boot messages to the third console that we don't see on startup. Press Ctrl and X to exit and enter Y to save your changes. Let's have a look at the perfectly clean startup process for our Lego NES. The Raspberry Pi shuts down for reboot and boots up with an absolutely clean screen only showing our startup video. I hope you enjoyed the time assembling your Lego NES kit, because now we're gonna partly destroy it again and make space inside the NES and TV to install all the tech stuff. Let's begin with the Lego TV and install the display to it. So take the TV and remove all the top plates. Now we grab the big element with the rotating world on it and gently lift it out of the case. We also have to remove the arm that holds the Mario figure. With this stuff out of the way, we can insert the display testwise and see if there are any more parts we need to remove. We want the display to fit perfectly to the TV's front side to leave no gaps. A few parts are still in the way, like the socket that holds the rotating world and a few small bricks on the bottom side that I uninstalled so that the screen rests plain inside the TV. After removing these parts, I reinserted the display to check the positioning again. The right hand side already looks fine, just the part on the left hand side with the gear needs to be removed as well. But keep these parts with you because we need them in the next step to build ourselves a helpful gimmick. We'll use the gear on the stick with the blue part and the volume knob as a lock mechanism for the display. Install it to the TV like shown here. Finally, remove the two gray round circle bricks on the top so we can fit the screen gapless to the front side of the TV. Now let's take a look around and check the positioning of the screen. As you can see, the display now fits perfectly. Thanks to the lock mechanism we built with the volume wheel, we can fix or release the display from the TV. I additionally installed a few bricks on the bottom to stabilize this side of the screen as well. Finally, we can add some more bricks to the top right side of the screen to make it hold even better. For now, we can remove the back cover of the TV to have an opening for the HDMI and power cable of the display. I connected everything to my Raspberry Pi and gave the TV a first test run. This was a very exciting step for me to actually see Super Mario Bros. Playing on a Lego TV. The first thing I recognized was that the opening of the TV was too small for the screen, so I was looking for a solution of this situation. One step to improve this was to remove the gray border parts on the left hand side and right hand side of the TV front. Reinstall the black plates back to the TV for more stability and to close the gap in between the TV case and the display again. Next, remove the light blue block that is in the way between the display cables and the back cover of the TV. We need this space for better cable management. Like this, the back cover allows us to have two smaller openings for the display, power and audio cables. Before we move over to the NES, let's finalize the work on the TV side and adjust the screen size of our display to the opening of the TV. I recommend to leave the display protection foil on until we're done with this step. Take a removable soft pen to mark the edges of the TV opening on the display. It's sufficient to just mark the edges in the four corners like shown here. After that, we can take the display out of the TV and put it on the desk since we need to make some software adjustments. In the end, it should look like this and you should clearly see the boundaries of your TV opening. Connect the display to your Raspberry Pi and boot it up. Quit Emulation Station to enter the console. Here, we need to edit another configuration file to adjust the screen size. Type sudo nano/boot/config.txt and hit enter. Use the arrow keys to navigate down to the overscan section I marked here. The command lines starting with the word overscan are disabled by the hash symbol at the beginning of the line. Remove the hashes of these four lines since they will allow us to define the border sizes of the four sides of the screen. It virtually moves the borders to the middle of the screen for positive numbers of pixels and towards the outside for negative numbers. In a first go, I entered some high numbers to get a feeling for the effect. As you can see, we kind of compressed the image from all sides towards the middle of the screen. So quit out of Emulation Station to enter the console again and repeat the steps until you perfectly adjusted the visible screen to the edges we marked on the display. In the end, it should look like this. My final values were 10 pixels for the left side, 45 for the right side, 40 for top, and 0 pixels for bottom. Now that the hardest part is over, take your right hand and clap it 3 times to your left shoulder. Well done. Let's take the NES now and make space for the Raspberry Pi. Remove all the blocks in the black area and extend the frame with these blocks by the size of the Pi case. Leave a hole towards the inside so we have room to access the Pi's connectors. Remove the flap and the lid. Since we need space within the NES for the USB hub and all the cables, we need to remove the lock mechanism of the cartridge as well. Gently insert the Pi case into the slot we prepared and fasten all the bricks around it, so it rests fixed into the Lego NES. Install the remaining blocks around the Pi, especially the hidden Super Mario Bros. Level and the front side that indicates the connectors. In the end, our Raspberry Pi should be embedded into the Lego NES and all its connectors should be accessible. With this step done, we can install the audio jack connector from the backside of the NES to our Raspberry Pi. Take the extension cable and plug it into the headphone connector on the right side. On the other side, we'll integrate it to the NES case like shown here. One last time, we need to get into the RetroPie menu and enter the Raspberry config. Here, we want to enter the system options and choose audio. Now we can select in between HDMI or headphone output. Choose headphone and confirm your selection to redirect the sound of your Raspberry Pi to the 3.5mm audio jack. After that, you can quit out to the RetroPie menu. Now let's do the final installations to the NES. Insert the USB hub and connect the USB cable from the hub to the power supply of your Raspberry Pi. After that, you can install the power LED to the case. Handle the cable with care since it is very thin and may tear apart if you put too much pressure to it. Take your time and connect the LED pin to the power LED spot in the corner of the Lego NES. Now that it fits into position, we can connect it to the USB hub as well. Finally, take the HDMI adapter cable and plug it into the Pi. You can pull the other end out of the NES case through this small hole of removed bricks. Connect the power adapter and we're done with the cabling. Take the lid and the flap and put them back into place. Next, we can put the speakers inside the TV and connect the audio cable as well as the video cable to the NES. Now we can reinstall the top plates of the TV back on it. It's time to clean up the desk, take a controller and start the setup for the first time. And that's it. We got our Raspberry Pi powered Lego NES up and running. Now you can add your favorite games and enjoy a brand new retro gaming experience on your self-built Lego NES. For sure, you can also add some more Nintendo games or further emulation systems to it. I'll keep my setup as a clean NES system. What would you do with yours? Let me know in the comments below. I hope this video inspired you to think about building your own one. Thanks to the Lego system, you can live out your creativity as you like. Another cool project could be to do the same with a Lego Atari 2600 set. It's a lot cheaper and could be done in the same way as this project. Either way, remember dinosaurs didn't have any playable Lego sets and they all died out. So don't make the same mistake and get yours today. Thanks for watching and feel free to subscribe to my channel if you like the content. Have a good time, see you in my next video, bye.